Towards Justice. Part 1. Justice and Morality. A moral code is the basis for justice. A human society must make an attempt to establish justice, or it is not humane. The relative development of a society is evidenced by its morality. Present justice systems are far from just. Some people, almost always poor, have been condemned to death for crimes they did not commit, and rich or famous people receive absolutely no consequences for fraud, plunder, slander, assault, murder, even genocide. The absence of justice is so acute that morality has declined, and people are utilizing methods from violence to black magic without visible consequence or conscience. In fact, many people don't even recognize the existence or validity of conscience. Present justice systems have strayed so far from moral principles that the human desire for justice has been obscured. There are many harmful, immoral actions that are not illegal, and there are many actions that are illegal that do no harm. The American legal system attempts to create justice by establishing rules for fair trials. However, these rules have been used to create great injustice. Clever lawyers and people who can afford to pay them are rewarded with money and freedom, and others with impoverishment and bondage. In fact, lawyers are required to fight for unjust results when they know a client is guilty, or when they know a cause is unjust or harmful. American courts have decided that money considerations take precedence over other moral principles. For example, lawyers, real estate agents, and others are legally obligated to serve whoever pays them, regardless of clients' wrongdoing or any contracts to the contrary. The law of agency holds that a paid employee has no responsibility for actions committed during work hours while under the direction of the payer. An employee legally has no power and no responsibility. Ability and responsibility are always linked together. Justice is regarded in America as whether the accused receives a fair trial, rather than a result that is just for all and based on the truth. Rules of evidence, what can be considered and what cannot be considered, are directly counter to discovery of the whole truth, and are easily used by the clever toward unjust aims. Legal proof is not proof at all. Beyond a reasonable doubt, and preponderance of the evidence may lead toward truth or untruth. Expert witnesses must serve the interests of those who pay them, and are unavailable to those who cannot afford to pay them. Some people observe keenly, remember accurately, and report precisely, but most do not. The notion of a jury of peers is not just because today's societies are far from homogeneous and have widely varied experiences, knowledge of civics and history, understanding of human psychology, and wisdom. Common sense is no longer common. Lawyers reject jurors in order to maximize the chances for their desired outcome, not to maximize the chances for justice. Laws are prone to semantic games and twists. Everything depends on what the meaning of is. Successful trial lawyers are those who present the best staged theater to the judge and jury, whether the story is truthful or fairly presented or not. Penalties prescribed by laws, typically fines and prison terms, cannot be just. Any fine is impossible for some people to pay and negligible for others. Laws prescribe penalties for offenders, but usually not compensation for the offended. Thus, laws do not even seek justice. Laws can be misapplied to circumstances completely different from what was intended by the original lawmakers. Laws are applied according to the desires of enforcers and other public servants, often to their own ends or benefit. Lawyers are legally allowed to lie to Congress or in court, but other people must tell the truth. Reference False Statements Accountability Act, 1996. The sacred halls of justice needed by humanity have become instead a battle arena in which the cleverest and slickest, and those who pay them, win. The most successful, widely adopted code of morality that humanity has so far, the 10 Commandments received by Moses, requires some adjustment for today's humanity. The meanings of words in any code need to be clarified. Languages are living things, and both denotations and connotations change over time. Principles of morality transcend language, and words need to be defined clearly in order to avoid devious twisting, as has heretofore occurred. For millennia, God was understood to be an unseen, man-like ruler who had the power and inclination to inflict excruciating penalties and require blood sacrifices for disobeying his law, whether just or unjust under the circumstances. Thus, morality was confounded with obedience to a set of rules. Today, the concept of God has widely different understandings, and some people reject it entirely. Use of the term can unintentionally generate confusion or conflict. Moral code must encompass and be relevant to our present circumstances and ways of life. To establish justice in any situation, we must realize that the only way in which people are equal is that every soul is of equal value. In all other ways, physically, mentally, spiritually, we are not the same, but extremely varied in our aspirations and preferences, as well as in our capabilities and philosophies. It is foolish to surmise that all people are uniform or equal in any way except the value of our souls. For this reason, the golden rule, to do unto others as we would have others do unto us, or even to not do to others as we would not have others do to us, applies often, but not always. Between 4 and 8% of people do not have the capacity for empathy and cannot imagine how others feel. What is moral for an individual depends partly on what they know or believe. If someone knows that a certain substance is toxic, rat poison, alcohol, a vaccine containing mercury, artificial sweeteners, or sugar, for instance, then it would be immoral for that person to ingest it or give it to someone else. However, if someone believes that same substance to be beneficial, then giving it to someone would not be immoral. Consequences would occur in any case. True justice can only be based on the whole truth. Where there is no truth, there can be no justice. The purpose of punishment ought not be to inflict pain as vengeance, but rather to maximize the chance that the person who has done harm does not do it again, to discourage others from doing the same, and to create justice for everyone, including the injured. Painful punishment may be just and necessary, but today humanity understands that pain in itself is not a just intent. Justice must include consideration of circumstances, intentions, understandings, histories, and abilities of both offender and offended, as well as the material facts. This is directly contrary to American law, but is understood by every mother, father, and child, and anyone who has ever been one. Humanity has progressed in understanding and in abilities, and is ready for a new code of morality and thence justice. A code of morality must be supplemented by a body of cases wherein justice that all can perceive has been effectuated.